Welcome to this presentation on Pilyavin et al. 1969. Background: the murder of Kitty Genovese in New York, 1964. The case was surprising as Kitty was attacked 3 separate times. The attacker went away and came back twice, once driving off in his car and coming back. And 38 witnesses came forward the next day. No one had called the police until it was too late, and Kitty was already dead by the time they were called in. The failure to offer or call for help for Kitty led newspapers to label New York as a city that did not care and would not help. The case triggered a series of social psychological studies into bystander behavior in emergencies. So this was a very famous case, and 38 witnesses saw this murder, but no one called the police until it was too late. Diffusion of responsibility. The theory that the more potential helpers are present in an emergency situation, the less likely the victim is to receive help. This is because each potential helper perceives responsibility as being shared out between all present, and therefore see themselves as being less personally responsible to help the more potential helpers there are. For example, if I am the only one present, I am 100% responsible. If there are 2 of us, I am 50% responsible, and if there are 10 of us, I am 10% responsible. The term bystander apathy was used to describe the behavior of bystanders in an emergency whose explanation for not helping a victim in need is that they believe that someone else will do what's necessary, so that there is no need for them to offer assistance. For example, the 38 witnesses in the Genovese murder believed that someone else would probably call the police, so they didn't feel the need to call the police. Background continued. Research by Dale and Latane, 1968, found that bystanders hearing an epileptic fit over earphones led to those who believed other witnesses to be present being less likely to help the victim than bystanders who believed they were alone. And this supports diffusion of responsibility, as I previously went through a minute ago. So that just supports that theory. Subsequent research by Latane and Rodin, 1969, on the response to the victim of a fall confirmed this finding and suggested that assistance from bystanders was less likely if they were strangers than if they were acquaintances, which is pretty obvious. Field experiments conducted by Bryan and Test in 1967 showed that individuals are more likely to be good Samaritans if they have just observed another individual performing a helpful act. Much of the work on victimization has been conducted in laboratory settings, using non-visual emergency situations, such as that by Dale and Latane. What Pilyavin et al. Decided to do was to conduct a field experiment in a real-life setting to see how people would really behave in response to a person in need of help, where they would be face-to-face with the emergency, instead of just hearing the emergency as in previous research. Here's a little comic strip of the study we're about to go through, so if you want to have a quick read of that, please press pause and feel free to read it. Research method. The study was a field experiment. The field situation were the A&D trains on the 8th Avenue New York subway between 59th Street and 125th Street. The journeys lasted about 7.5 minutes. The experimenter had 4 independent variables. The experiment, had 4 independent variables. 1. The type of victim. 2. The race of victim. 3. Effect of a model. 4. Size of the witnessing group. And this was a naturally occurring independent variable. The dependent variables were recorded by 2 female observers seated in the adjacent area, and these were the frequency of help, the speed of help, the race of the helper, sex of the helper, movement out of the critical area, verbal comments by bystanders. The sample consisted of 4,450 men and women who used the New York subway on weekdays between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. between the 15th of April and the 26th of June 1968. About 45% of the sample were black and 55% were white. Method. 4 teams of 4 researchers were Columbia General Studies students, collected data from 103 trials in total. 38 out of 103 trials were the drunk condition, and 65 out of 103 were the cane condition. Teams were all made up of 2 males and 2 females and always worked together. The females were the observers, and they recorded data as unobtrusively as possible, seated in the adjacent area. The males were the victim and the model, who always remained standing. The victim carried a walking stick, cane, in the ill condition, and a bottle of liquor in a brown paper bag in the drunk condition. The models were all white and were males aged 24 to 29 years. There were 4 model conditions: critical area early, critical area late, adjacent area early, and adjacent area late. The observers recorded the dependent variables. On each trial, one observer noted the race, sex, and location of every rider, seated or standing in the critical area. In addition, she counted the total number of individuals who came to the victim's assistance. She also recorded the race, sex, and location of every helper. The second observer coded the race, sex, and location of all persons in the adjacent area. She also recorded the latency of the first helper's arrival after the victim had fallen, and on appropriate trials, the latency of the first helper's arrival after the programmed model had arrived. Both observers recorded comments spontaneously made by nearby passengers and attempted to elicit comments from a rider sitting next to them. The victim stood near a pole in the critical area. After about 70 seconds, he staggered forward and collapsed. Until receiving help, he remained laying on the floor, looking at the ceiling. If he received no help, by the time the train stopped, the model helped him to his feet. At the stop, the team disembarked and waited separately until other passengers had left the station. They then changed platforms to repeat the process in the opposite direction. Between 6 to 8 trials were run on any given day, all using the same victim condition. There were more cane trials than drunk trials, which were distributed unevenly across black and white victims because Team 2 violated instructions by running cane rather than drunk trials because the victim didn't like playing the drunk. Subsequent student strikes prevented additional trials to correct this. Findings: the cane victim received spontaneous help 95% of the time, 62 out of 65 trials. Not trails, that's a bit of a typo there. Compared to the drunk victim 50% of the time on 19 out of 38 trials. Overall, there was 100% help for the cane victim compared to 81% help for the drunk victim. Help was offered more quickly to the cane victim, a median of 5 seconds, compared to 109 seconds delay for the drunk victim. On 49 out of 81, 60% trials, when help was given, this was provided by 2 or more helpers. 90% of the first helpers were males. There was a slight tendency for same-race helping, especially in the drunk condition. No diffusion of responsibility was found. In fact, response times were faster with larger groups than smaller, so this study actually contradicts the diffusion of responsibility theory. More comments were made by passengers in the drunk condition than the cane condition, and most comments were made when no help was given within the first 70 seconds. Conclusions: an individual who appears ill is more likely to receive help than one who appears drunk. With mixed groups of men and women, men are more likely to help than women when there's a male victim. With mixed race groups, people are more likely to help those of the same race as themselves, particularly if they deem the victim's situation to be of his own making, for example drunk, as in the study. There is no strong relationship between number of bystanders and speed of helping when an incident is visible. When escape is not possible and bystanders are face to face with a victim, help is likely to be forthcoming. Bystanders conduct a cost-reward analysis before deciding whether or not to help a victim, and this is basically based on whether it's beneficial for that person to actually help the victim. Subsequent spontaneous help from others was irrespective of race or victim type. Thank you for listening to this video. I hope it wasn't too quick for you and that you made some notes and paused the video when you needed to. Please subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.